Welcome to the Curious Concierge. I'm Justin Sun, and this is a podcast about the dreamers, shapers, and innovators redefining hospitality across Asia. Each episode goes behind the scenes of the hotels and villas to restaurants and cultural spaces, where we explore the places where we stay, gather, and experience, and the people who bring them to life. These are the stories behind the stays. Let's get curious. Today, we're heading to one of my favorite places in the world, Bali, where hospitality is less an industry and more of a way of life. Our guest is someone who's lived every side of that world, from villas and boutique hotels to corporate leadership and brand storytelling. Adhiguna is the CEO of the Kayon Hotels and Resorts, and until recently, COO of Nakula Villas, which manages more than 70 properties and estates across Bali. He's also had stints at Elite Havens and the Lux Nomad. So if you've ever stayed in a villa in Asia, there's a good chance he's had a hand in shaping that experience. He's built a career at the intersection of operations, culture, and creativity, blending discipline and heart, systems and soul. Adhiguna, thank you for joining me and welcome to the Curious Concierge.
Thank you so much, Justin. It's a pleasure for me to joining this podcast.
Well, I'm really excited to chat with you. I read an article about you recently, and it mentioned that you grew up in Klungkang, if that's how I say it. You mentioned you grew up in an area with rice fields, temples, everything that makes Bali, Bali. So when you look back now, what parts of that upbringing still guides the way you think about hospitality?
Hospitality is, in a way, should have distinctive differentiations depending on where you are. If you are in Bali, you have to bring all of the warm service of the culture and traditions in Bali, not trying to make another Ibiza in Bali, not another Tulum style of services in Bali, but you have to bring all of the uniqueness of the destinations. If you travel halfway around the world, and you're traveling to Bali, what do you expect to get? Would you expect to get another modern minimalist hotels, or a true Balinese experience with all the traditions, the richness of the culture, the villagers who comes to the rice field in the morning, and that kind of thing sustainable?
I think it's great that you're surrounded by the environments that is so unique to Bali, and it gives you a strong sense of what you want to serve to folks that are visiting Bali. Your background has been in a bunch of different areas before leading up to becoming COO and CEO, from guest relations to running brands and literally seeing, hospitality from the ground up. I'm curious if you can share with us, from those early hands-on days to now, how did your hospitality journey begin? And how did it teach you about empathy, service, and leadership, since you are holding that title for a while now?
All right. Well, I start my career in a very basic positions, and honestly, you might find this quite surprising, but my first official career is a teacher. I spent almost a year in Singapore, working in Raffles and being in their food and beverage team. And I realized that things that everyone taught me in Bali about quality of service, the warmth, the service, and everything doesn't really work in Singapore. Singaporean, they loves everything. The best service is a quick service. If you can be quick and be efficient, that means you're doing a good service. But it's very different thing with Bali. It's things that more laid back. So when I come back from Singapore, my old school, they are reaching out to me and asking me whether I'm interested to teach and become a F&B service instructor, teach English as well for hospitality. Then I found my way somehow after becoming a teacher for about 3.5 years. A very good friend inviting me to come and work in Denpasar as a customer service in the telecommunications company. I found it's quite fascinating because it taught me how to be patient and meet with so much people, learning what lots of character, how to to turn complaints into compliments. Because if you come to a customer service of your telecommunications, that means you are in having problems. You're not asking for information. You're having problems. That's why you come to customer service, and that's how I met with a lot of customers as well. One of them has a close related with Aman, and it's quite fascinating for me because suddenly, she just asked for my CV, and when I sent it, I was offered twice by Aman, and I rejected them twice as well. And that is back then, somewhere in 2008 or 9. Everyone that heard my story, they said, you are an idiot because a man is there. It's their own standard of hospitality, and you reject them twice. One of as a restaurant manager, the other one is as housekeeping supervisor. Unfortunately, it's not my passion. At that time, they offered me a restaurant manager in Amanwana in Moyo Island, which is pretty
Mm.
far, so I'm not that interested. The other one is Amandari in Ubud. They asked me to fill in a housekeeping supervisor position, but it's not my passion. It's not my background. I'm not a housekeeper. I'm an F&B person. But that person is not giving up that easily. She contacted another her friends in Villa Kubu at the time. There I go. I start my career as guest relations manager. Keep moving forward as spa manager as well, guest relations, then sales and marketing, then operations. It takes me about 2 3 years to climb that ladder. I learned a lot of interesting things in each department, and I think that's gives me a sense of hospitality in a very basic form from different operations, from guest relations, which you're connecting with guests, then goes to spa, which you don't talk much in spa, and then sales and marketing and operations. It gave lots of modality for me to stepping up my career.
Wow. Okay. I mean, I have so many questions. You must have left such an impression on this person at Aman. What was your role at the telecom business? Was it in person? Was it on the phone? Or how did they receive you as a strong candidate to be part of, their properties?
It's because of the way I do the service. At that time, I am the team leader of customer service, and there are a lot of difficult cases. She came into the office with different gadgets and different problems, in which takes quite a while to be solved. And most of the customer service has a different approach because everything is time, everything is KPI'd. Your average interactions is also calculated. By the time you're receiving yes, your time is already calculated. It's going to affect your KPI. Deep down, I always feel that screw this. Come for us for help. Just because you take some time to help someone doesn't mean that you are doing a bad job. So I intentionally drop my KPI. They need help. We are the expert to help them. I cannot just shove them. It took me about 1.5 hour more or less, and that's, well, if you compare and the customer service KPI, it's awful because for one customer is going to take you about 20 minutes max. Well, judging on that, because I'm patient enough, I guide them through, get her through about all of the problem, explaining clearly what is happening, because the genuine wants to help, genuine feel that you just love to help someone. I think that moves her. That
Wow. Okay. Sometimes you just got to go outside the handbook and break some rules. I mean, you didn't break any rules, but I think it showed, right? If a customer comes in and they walk away without their issues being solved, it's going
no,
to
that's
become
awful.
a negative
Yeah,
review. It's going to become something
exactly.
bigger, and it doesn't matter how long it took. And the KPI will get all erased with one negative response. Very interesting. What gave you the confidence to jump back out into FMB? Because it sounded like you did FMB a little bit. You were a teacher. You went to telecom. That was a very interesting role. You grew already into a team leader. What made you decide, okay, I'll take this new role?
Well, because it's my root. I really love the hospitality industry because genuinely I just love to help someone. I just love to put smiles on others, because I was inspired by, I heard there's a word like this: in a world where you can be anyone or anything, choose to be kind. That moves me. I would tend to take the opportunities to make others smile and happy.
I love that. At Amman, you had, great early on hands-on experiences. That level of property, the level of education at Amman, I'm sure was very high and a standard that many hotels would like to replicate. With that kind of mindset and experience, if you were to walk into a property today and saw a new staff member interacting with a guest, what are the small details that make you think, yes, they got it. They got the hospitality in their blood. They know what they're doing.
It's easy. First of all, a smile. If you are sincere with your smile, people will feel it. I believe in what they call like a frequency. I can see if they're genuine or
Mm.
not, their body gesture, their intonation of speaking, their smile. Everything will show up. Everyone can feel it. If you fake it, people will always understand. And I think that's very important for Sun as a frontliner everywhere in the world. You need to be genuinely happy to assist. If you're not
Mm.
happy to assist, it's quite difficult. But that's deep root in my mind, in my soul, is that to make your guests happy is not by good SOPs and KPIs, but how to make your team happy first. Because there's no way in the world that you can make your guests happy if your staff is unhappy. You need
Mm.
to make a good environment, make a good culture, corporate culture, and everything will come into place.
Every time I visit Bali, even the simple gestures, a smile, an offering, a small good morning, you can kind of feel that heartfelt sincerity. And
Correct.
it's something cultural and spiritual too that is very unique to
Exactly.
Indonesia, especially Bali. In this article, you've also mentioned that hospitality is connection and not service. I love that phrase. And in your words, what does connection look like in the Balinese context?
Well, connection is not just service. Service is something that you just do, but connection is trying to make two entities connected. Connection is not just about, having lots of good networks, but to be connected, to be spiritually connected, to be physically connected. There's a take and give, that a mutual respect that transcend beyond physical things, beyond routines of service or SOPs. You need to be genuinely happy. I think from their point of view, you need to be respectful. If you have that bond and you have the connections, it's unbreakable. It's a lot deeper than that.
Very true. And from those early roots, you went on to be part of this ecosystem that professionalized Bali's villas and short term rentals. I would love to dig into that journey. You've had front row seats to the rise of the professional villa management in Asia. Maybe you can take us back a little bit. When you first joined Elite Havens, what did the villa scene look like back then?
Well, Elite Havens actually has a very good standard. They are very luxurious, aim to be on the upper scale. It's very different with just a villa or just a house with a maid. They are providing lots of services in which that very much align with what I love. I really love personal connections. I really love the way we treat our guests to provide the best service, to provide a best experience. It's not just about, you're staying in a fancy place. What I love the most when I was a villa manager at Leadhaven. I have the opportunity to meet with a lot of people, regardless what their social statuses is. I learn a lot from them, actually. And it's also what shapes me up today. I met high officials of MasterCard, Microsoft, and lots of important leaders in industry in the world, and learn from them the way they do things, the way they interact with people. You will not believe how humble they are when they meet with us, such a low life kind of peasants preparing their meal every day, cleaning their beds or whatever, and interacting with them basic human to human way. Meanwhile, they are very high end management team. They are very humble, and I can see the different side of them as a human, a person, mother, husband, and as a son. And that gives me a lot of opportunities, and I love that so much. And I can learn a lot, and that's shapes me until today.
Wow, the exposure at Elite Havens was sounds like an incredible time. Since you had so much interactions, it sounds like you weren't just doing your normal villa stays. It sounded like you were doing more of these corporate events, retreats at these villas of your meeting with multiple C-suite executives. And I suppose retreats today are extremely popular, but back then I'm sure even though you have beautiful properties in your portfolio, there wasn't a lot of structure and systems in place. When you're dealing with perhaps high end clientele plus executive teams coming in to using the property and you have to provide almost perfect
Yeah.
stays, what were the biggest learnings at Elite Havens, especially about being consistent and creating an industry that wasn't as developed as today?
I learned a lot how to create a proper system. of consistently providing the best service, consistently providing is a same standard toward all of our guests, regardless of challenges. I learned a lot about structuring the team to utilize what's best of them. Every person has a different character. They have different strength. They have also different weakness. It allows me to see through them and utilize their skill set, utilize their in order to achieve the goals, not just an extra mile, but I don't know, 10 extra miles. There's a lot of things that are virtually impossible, but we are trying our best to make it possible. Our property back then is not suitable to host a 50 persons initial gathering, and with only 5 team members. We managed to pull through and exceed expectations. That's something that I learned, to always give your extra mile, to always give your extra service.
Amazing. I'm sure Elite Havens was a good stomping grounds to learn about this space.
Correct.
And
Yes.
then you had Lux Nomad
Yeah.
afterwards, which is a very similar company, perhaps a little bit more digital native player. How was your experience there like?
I entering the company on 2019, just before the COVID, and I found there's a lot of things back then that not being standardized enough. Yes, virtually it looks nice, but operationally there's a lot of things to be improved at that time. There are structures that are absent, there are culture which is not there, and I found it there's very challenging times at that time to shape the company culture team, to shape structures, to shape a lot of processes and creating new standards. My time there was very interesting because there's a lot of room for me to be creative, to
Mm.
work with a lot of different teams, both local and international. It allows me to see different perspectives, see from different country, and how to interchange in between, because the corporate office it's not in Indonesia. There are team in Manila, in Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Australia, Japan, and also Thailand. It's very interesting and it's very challenging to shape the last nomad in Bali into what it is now. But I'm very proud of my time there, and I'm very thankful to the institutions, to the CEO, to my team member back then, that we can pull through with everything. But that's a very nice experience.
Sounded like you had a very localized experience at Elite Havens and the Lux Nomad. You were more part of the corporate strategy, growth, and the global infrastructure teams
Yeah,
around the world. And it
yeah.
wasn't just you focusing on just Bali, it was on other destinations too. And then it came back into more local company, Nakula. But these villas are huge. Some of them I saw on a website could even have 250 plus people on property. So basically like a wedding venue. How did you balance growth with preserving the culture of the Balinese and this intimacy with the high expectations from these guests? Would love to kind of hear the group mix and how your time at Nakula was like.
Although my time in Nakula is considerably short, about 1.5 year, but one of the key points that my time at Nakula is, first of all, is about growth. When I joined Nakula, their property is about 42 or 43, I don't know, I can't remember. But when I leave the property, Nakula, the amount of properties for standalone villas is close to 70, almost double the growth, in which is one of the achievements that I can be proud of. There are lots of wheels that are working together and make it that happen. But that the key how to preserve the standards, the culture, and everything is to be able to see what is the weakness of your current system, to be able to see where do you want to scale up. Because at that moment, I simply said, when I joined, there's 12 members of accounting team for standalone villas. But when I leave for almost 70 villas, almost double the capacity, the team is still 12. That means they are being able to absorb more property without need to expand your team. That means the system that I changed throughout 1.5 years working. That one of the key factor as well, and how to make sure that all of those properties is aligned is to have a proper system from corporate down to the units, to have a proper team as well, those who understand and believe what is the value of Nakula the company and how to transcend it, on how to transcribe it, and how to implement it in every unit. I think that is the key to understand where you are, where you want to be, and what is the structures and all of the system and everything, all of the resources that you need to move to achieve that goal. And you need to understand that first.
Wow, 12 people for 70 plus properties, and these
Yeah.
properties are huge. So that's an amazing feat. Could you share with us one example of a system or something that you helped create at Nakula to create that consistency and standard that really helped, shape what it is today?
The biggest achievement and what that I managed to change or set up the system in Nakula is that understanding what is each role is really working out too, and understanding that workload in each of the structures, their people and positions is interacting in between to reach the goal. Sometimes you need to, when you run a very large company or a established company, sometimes you might forget that your company is already growing, you're big enough, and you're heading somewhere. You forgot to run an audit to your own team. You forgot to run an audit of your own system. There's a confidence that you feel that everything is fine, everything is good. Don't reinvent the wheel. Don't fix things that aren't broken. It's about evolving. It's about, upscaling your operation to upscale your business. And you cannot do the exact same thing if you want to upscale. Upscaling and adding more properties in developing your business doesn't mean that you have to developing your expenses. You need to understand how you see from every wheels that are turning around, that rolling the company, that interact in between departments, structures, positions.
Amazing. I think delegation is the biggest theme here, and understanding how to manage a team well and being adaptable. What do you think for the people outside of the industry? What do they misunderstand most about managing villas at this scale?
It's very common questions. There's a lot of people think that managing a villa is just like managing a house, and there's a lot of things that they don't consider when they purchasing one or build one or trying to operate one. Operation wise, you have to understand that it depends on what villa that you want to run, what property that you want to run, and how you're going to run it. If you're going to have Airbnb type of rent in which you don't offer services, you just offering a house with a key box somewhere where your guest is able to access it, open the door, and you live there. You trust the guest 100%. If we are talking about a professional management of having a villa in Bali, there's a lot of aspects. Even before you purchase it, before you build it, you must understand what type of businesses that you want to run. The building permit model is different. The building permit itself must state that you're going to build a villa. In the past, it's Pondok Wisata is possible, but up to 5 bedrooms. But then after that, if you're going to have a villa permit, then you're going to rent it out. And everyone must take notes that an SRF for a rented property, you need to update it every 3 years. And that's
Mm,
another cost that you need to understand. Indonesian legislation is quite different, especially if you are foreigners and you come to Bali to invest. You need to create a foreign investment company or what we call a PTPMA. And that is quite costly because you need to invest at least 10 billion rupiah. That's quite a lot of money. In the length of about 3 or 6 months, you're on Airbnb is not as simple because if your license is not actually for a rented accommodations, then you're illegal. You will be forced in a very difficult situation because you only invest, but you cannot sell it, you cannot run it,
mm.
and you kind of bit in sticky situations.
Yeah, that's very important to consider the local jurisdictions, especially for a booming city like Bali. I'm sure Lombok as well. Lots of people are flocking in, thinking that they can buy an investment home easily. But as you mentioned, there's so many parameters to consider. Which is a great segue to the next topic that I want to cover. You've had such a rare vantage point watching how the villa economy matured while still keeping that island soul. Would love to zoom out and talk about the larger ecosystem that you're helping shape. If you had to paint a picture of Bali's short-term rental market today, how does it differ from 10 years ago? So aside from, let's say, perhaps more jurisdictions, regulations, permits, how has the scene evolved since you started?
Legislation itself does not change much compared
Mm,
to past 10 years. The government offices is now more synchronized. In the past, if you goes to a licensing office, it's not connected with the tax office. It's not connected with the bank. Even the tax office can open your bank accounts. It's not that
Mm.
simple anymore. In the licensing office or in the reportings, they are also connected between tax of your employees and your tax as an employer. So they do a cross-check government offices in which the regulation itself does not change much. Previous way they call it IMB, now PBG. The differences is that they are more synchronized now. All of the investors have lots of workaround. Now you cannot work around because everything is
No
synchronized.
more loopholes, no more gray area. It's very defined, a lot clearer.
Exactly. We also founded a BVRMA or Bali Villa Rental and Management Associations, founded for villa managements. What we do is make it accessible for those who seek information and room for them to interact with each other because in the past, villa owners don't know what to do to ask for information or regulation, but now they are able to learn about things, ask about things. And in fact, I think we held a seminar with tourist office, licensing office in Bali about what is a license is actually required to run a villa. So I think it's very useful for lots of members.
These sort of organizations to bring the local community investors together is like extremely
Correct.
important. I'll actually have Kadek on the podcast, and
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
he'll shed more light on his time as the president of the foundation. The regulations and permits hasn't changed too much, but it's really about decreasing any loopholes and having those
Yes.
margins be a lot more
Correct.
clear. Then let's talk about the travelers now. How are you seeing it today? Are you seeing more or still a lot of digital nomads or more families? These nomads become residents, then become families that are staying longer term, or is it focused more on groups, wellness travelers? How has that changed in the last 10 years that you've been part of this industry?
Before pandemic, they book way earlier, like 6 months, four
Mm.
months in advance. But nowadays, their booking windows is comes much closer. It's because also development of lots of OTAs now. They feel that it's safer to actually book closer to the date. And there's a lot of actually there's a lot of properties in Bali. Not like 15 years ago, in which there's not much of options for investors. They bought a lot of lands and start to invest. Either it's like villas, hotels, or resorts. A shift in guest behavior because they understand now that the room much more compared to the travelers. And by having accessibility on OTAs, they understand it. There's so many options. It's easy to just book through their fingertips. That makes a lot of shifts in how they book and where they book. But remembered in 2023, there's a lot of headlines showing how traffic jam has, taken the best of Bali. There's a lot of people got stranded because of traffic jam. They cannot get into the airport in Christmas or New Year. So it also affects their perceptions about Bali. The amount of new property is increasing because that's where the
Mm.
investment comes. And I see more and more people try to find or rediscover the other destinations in Jimbaran or in further east, like Karangasem. With Kayon, we are also investing there. We are building another resorts in Karangasem. We see a lot of potentials in East Bali. People get bored about Seminyak
Mm.
and Cakpu. The sense of adventure is missing. You're traveling halfway around the world and you just see another beach in another beach club. Destinations doesn't feel special anymore. That is why other places in Bali get rediscovered and their occupancy and their demand is increasing, like in Sanur, a small area, but very laid back, very slow, suitable for senior citizens. Lots of people from European came there, or like Jimbaran, Ritz-Carlton, and all of those Four Seasons hotels are there. I believe that's what guests actually wants to see, things that they don't see every day, a different culture, the different way of life.
That's interesting because booking windows used to be 6 months, 3 months, and
Yeah, in
obviously
fact,
supply was low.
yeah.
And then there was a big boom, and now everyone's going to different markets. Everyone's getting tired of the over tourism in Canggu, where the beach clubs are. And now they're going up east or more south, as you mentioned. And now it's going back to what travelers were going to Bali 4 years ago, which was to find something unique to the island. This full circle moment, there's perhaps oversupply in certain markets, and now people are looking outside of those areas. And it's not investors, it's the guests that are also looking to go to these locations. Now that so much eyes on Bali, especially on the real estate and development scene, you hinted at these big opportunities, bringing back into the island culture, spirituality, nature. What are the biggest pain points for owners and operators in these bigger opportunity markets? Let's say East Ubud. What are some of these issues that, yes, it's an opportunity, but what are some cons that come with it?
As long there's always a demand. If you are going to build luxury villa, if you're going to build a 1 2 bedroom villas, there's already offer supply of it. Because there's a lot of 1 or 2 or 3 bedroom villas in Bali, and especially in Ubud, in which most property is actually a complexes of villas or small resorts or boutique hotels or luxury villas built for honeymoons. Most of us think, let's build a honeymoon villa in Bali. Let's build, a small villa in Ubud. That doesn't really work because we're going to compete with all of the establishment that's already there. There's a lot of
Mm.
hotels. Then it's a suicide. You have to understand where you want to invest and what type of property that you want to invest. And you must have a very strong local knowledge. If you want to invest in Ubud, then by all means don't invest another 1 2 3 bedrooms. You need to have a significantly larger villa because there's not much of it in Ubud. But if you want to go with the small investments, then go east perhaps or west, somewhere in Sidaman.
Yeah, you build and they come, but a lot
Yeah.
more data, a lot more research is necessary, especially in today's market. I think this regulation and community aspect, right? Bali has faced real tension between tourism growth
Mhm.
and local sustainability. So,
Mhm.
how do you personally navigate the balance between the progress and preservation?
I think the main key is concentrations of investments. The main problem Bali face now is that it's over concentrated. It's not over tourism because if you compare Bali versus Singapore, for instance, there's so much land in Bali. There's so much places that you haven't put. There's lots of potential out there, particularly northeast of Bali. The main problem is over concentrated of tourism.
Mm.
They are concentrated in Canggu and Peranan because there's lots of demand there. There's a lot of investments there as well. But I think as investors, you have to understand that there's a lot of another places in Bali. We need to finding balance between investments and preservation of culture is to not to build another Ibiza style of property, not to build another Tulum's property, but come back to the roots. And I'm proud to say that the Kayan is being recognized of preserving that culture and traditions. We have even our check-in experience is all about Balinese traditions, and our F&B programs is all Balinese. If you want to take investment in Bali and how to balance it, you just need to come back to the roots because I think hospitality in Bali is moving into a more sustainable type of properties and businesses instead of touristy kind of properties and business.
That's a perfect segue into talking about the Kayon. Kayon, if I'm not wrong, means tree of life, right?
Correct.
In Balinese tradition, I can also see that in the logo.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it's not just a resort, it's a spiritual place and how it blends culture, nature, calmness. What drew you personally to the brand? How did you get back into moving from short term rentals out to a property such as the Kayon?
It's not too much different. When I was in Nakula, Nakula also manages several resorts as well and complexes of villas. Meanwhile, the Kayon, although it's a resort, it's also consists of villas, and two of our latest properties, the Kayon Valley Resorts and the Kayon Ganga Resort, which still in constructions to be launched next year, are also a complexes of villa. Every villa is individual 1 bedroom villas. Some of them has 2 stories, some of them is only 1 story. It's not that too much different. It's just the way to perceive is still more into resorts. The most different thing is that now I have an outlets. I have several
Mm.
outlets. Now I have restaurants. I have spa, which is actually a good facility to pamper our guests and providing us a lot more coverage and services. I think that's the challenge and that's the fun thing.
You have more resources, everything is more
Yeah.
centralized, and you have more services. That's really exciting. Clearly, it's doing well. You have 2 or 3 properties in the pipeline, which is fantastic news for the brand and company. Currently, what is your guest mix? Is it more honeymooners, wellness travelers, wedding groups? I see that you guys are offering retreats as well as a focus on weddings. Is that a push now that you're seeing in today's market, or has that always been there in this area of Ubud?
Ubud is very famous on several keys that you mentioned is Ubud is very famous for honeymoon, weddings, treats because all of those trees is actually very suitable with the surroundings. There's lots of large trees, there's lots of valleys, there's a lot of rivers, there's a lot of things that support that kind of ambience. If you go to Ubud, you're more conscious about your health, your well-being, your connections, nature, because that's what Ubud is, and that's what the Kayon has to offer. I don't actually have to push much into the new segments, but it's just a creativity of how we're going to, position ourselves. Although we already number one in Ubud, the TripAdvisor, we are very well known. We need to understand how to evolve further, how to become a larger property management company. They hire me to set up the corporate team, the corporate standards, and to run a different identity of the Kayon. It's not just hotels, but it's now become a hotel management company.
The Kion is really evolving into a real estate arm and then a management arm and really growing its portfolio. And you're the perfect person to handle all of that. With the guest mix, is there one particular guest mix that stands out at the Kion now? And are you using that information and data to influence the other properties? For example, is it heavy on perhaps wedding? If so, then obviously you might want to have a larger F&B or larger spaces so you can hold the wedding ceremony itself and walking down the aisle.
Most of our clients is honeymooners. We are quite popular for new couples. For consequence of that, we also receive lots of wedding inquiries, but more intimate weddings, somewhere between 30 to 50 max. We are trying to push more into that kind of segments, try to make it more what's called like all-rounder package kind of things. Having your wedding here, then you spend your honeymoon here. We are trying to curate their itinerary and travel to Bali. We are going to launch our new departments of concierge department in which they will act as our guest personal assistants in tailoring their experience in Bali right after they book the property. Try to make our guests is no longer need to research where to go, what to do, and leave the rest to our team.
That sounds great. In terms of this level of service, you guys are pushing the envelope and creating a ecosystem for weddings and honeymoon and everything in between. And so I have to ask, what are some rituals or design details that really define the Kion experience?
The check-in experience is quite different. When they arrive on the property, we are give them a Balinese blessings. We call it a tirta. When they arrive, we are whether you're going to accept this welcoming rituals. We go into a temple to do a small tirta. So there's a lot of holy water that we just sprinkle to our guests. There's also bija made from rice and it's wet with tirta as well. So you just put it inside in the middle of your eyebrows. It's a common ritual in Bali, but for guests who actually who travels in the south property, they might not going to experience it. But at the Kayon, that's the welcoming experience they're going to receive. And in the premises as well, we have malukat ceremony or water cleansing that we can arrange for the guests, like morning walks to the villages. We have our dedicated team that act guiding the guests to walk in the village through the rice fields, provided with informations about what is locals do, this kind of agriculture, breathe in the morning, be calm, be one with the nature. I think that is type of experience that we can proud of, that embodied all of about the culture and traditions in Bali. Try to invite our guests to slow down a little bit. This is Bali. Try to understand how the Balinese way of life is a bit laid back. Of course, if you compare to New York lifestyle, it's worth to like what people said. Stop and smell the roses. You need to be present. Yeah.
That sounds like a very cool ritual. You also mentioned that you're building a couple new properties. When you're evaluating these new projects, what are some non-negotiables?
Building wise or structure wise, it must have a good view. It must be breathtaking. When you actually entering the properties, when you entering the lobby, you must have that kind of breathtaking ambiance. If you enter our lobby at the Kayon jungle, you will see a very deep valley. That's one of the breathtaking aspects. So we don't want just another resort that has no view boxed in. The view is something that you cannot just create. We need to find the perfect locations, structures, and design to emphasize it, to present it to our guests.
Mm, that's very true. You've been a COO, a CEO, holding many positions as an executive, managing large teams. How do you keep everyone aligned to one culture and standard when things are moving very fast?
I have to conduct the interview. If it's my team, I'm going to conduct the interview. I cannot do an online interview because I cannot see their gestures. I cannot see their small movements in their eyes or whatever.
Mm.
I need to personally see them in wherever I work. Is that every team member must be passionate with their job. They must have like our very early conversations. I mentioned that you have to be genuinely love to help others. You must be sincere to make others happy. And I think there's the same quality in how we are choosing our team. In terms of the Kayon itself, how we are going to embody the same standard, the same identity, the same experience through our guests is that we must have a very strong corporate culture, a very strong human resources team in which constantly spreading that positivity, passion, those standards that we have. By having those elements, we will be able to maintain our culture.
And that's very important. And let's be honest, right? Hospitality can be very intense, and passion is a very important thing to ensure there's longevity and excitement as as being part of the frontline service culture. And as you mentioned, as a GM, as a CEO, long hours, constant problems. What do you do personally to stay grounded and also inspired?
I love what I'm doing. Long hours, yes. I arrive home about 11 o'clock every single day, and I already at the office around 8 in the morning because I love it. It's like a hobby for me, and time flies because you love what you do. Find a job that you love, no matter whether it's in the Elite Havens, Lux Nomad, Nakula, or the Kayon. I'm always passionate with my job, and that's perhaps that kind of energy that fuels me. I just love to see my team. I just love to see new people, new person, guests.
I agree. I think that's so important. Your job takes up so much time of your day and it's basically your second life. For some is their first life. It's great. It's great advice. Well, let's just jump into something a little bit more fun. This is the rapid fire question round. Most underrated neighborhood in Bali.
Karangasem.
A design or service trend or you'd like to retire tomorrow.
Now, if it's foreign design, it will not last forever because it's
Mm,
not unique to where you are.
yes. Needs to be localized, right?
Correct.
A hidden gem you'd recommend to friends visiting Bali.
Singaraja and Karangasem, both of them.
Last question here. Favorite hotel or villa brand besides your own or the companies that you worked at before?
Pandapa and Aman.
I love that. Now I'm going to ask you the curious question. If the Kayon or Nakula had to reinvent themselves in another city, let's say Tokyo or Delhi, what elements would you keep exactly the same and what would you reinvent entirely?
If I have to go open in another country, I would consider Thailand. It has lots of similarities with Bali. What I would keep exactly the same is how we are going to preserve its culture. Because Thailand has a very rich of culture. It's not exactly the same like Bali, but it's quite similar.
That's fantastic. Okay. And what's next for you? Are there any projects? I think you mentioned a couple pipeline projects that you're working on with the Kion or directions on the horizon that you're excited about?
Yes, short term is the developing and growing the companies because I already spoke with several investors that are going to build and use the Kayon brand. Very interesting. And short term is we are set to aim for IPO. Well, it's going to take a while, but it's there.
Wow, that's
So
amazing.
excited.
Okay. Well, I have a feeling that this next chapter is going to be a very big one then. Wow. Well, Adhiguna, this has been such a thoughtful and inspiring conversation. You've really shown us how hospitality can evolve without losing its heart and soul.
Yeah,
I'll
exactly.
link the Kion's website and your details, your LinkedIn, and the show notes. But before we wrap up, where can listeners connect with you or follow you if they had any additional questions?
Well, they can reach out to me on my LinkedIn or reach out to me or follow my Instagram because I also always share my activity in Instagram as well. So feel free to DM.
Perfect. I'll add that to the show notes. Well, thank you
Awesome.
so much, Adhiguna. I had a great time with you, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you so much, Justin. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
This episode is part of a special 6-part series created in collaboration with Short-Term Rental Asia, a regional organization supporting the growth and professionalization of the short-term rental and villa industry across Asia. Together, we're exploring how hospitality in Asia is evolving from design and regulation to technology, sustainability, and the human stories behind the stays. Thanks so much for listening. If this episode sparked something for you, follow the show and share it with someone who loves hospitality. A rating or review helps more listeners discover these stories, and it truly means a lot. Know a founder, operator, designer, or innovator who should be on the podcast? Send me a DM or email. All links are in the show notes. And until next time, stay curious.